This is George from High Tech Legion. At CES in 2013, AIO liquid coolers were obviously a big topic. It was a booming industry. Probably the most notable and the AIO that garnered the most attention at CES in 2013 was Swiftech's H220. Reasons for it were pretty simple. First off, you had an upper echelon elite actual liquid cooling company building an AIO at a reasonable price. But more importantly, it was the first open loop AIO we saw and also had a pump with much higher head pressure and flow rate than we had seen before on an AIO, so it was capable of expandability. Now, some problems did come into play in the US with the Swiftech H220 and is no longer available. However, Cooler Master and Swiftech have teamed up to bring out the Glacer 240L, which basically takes the foundation of the H220 and takes it to another level. At first glance, the 240L looks pretty much like exactly what it is. A 240mm or dual 120mm, depending on how you want to look at it, AIO liquid cooler. However, there are some distinct differences right off the bat that you notice. First off, it is an open loop cooler, so you can actually add to it. This is going to be important when we're talking about the differences here. So you can actually disconnect your tubing, drain it, add a radiator, add a GPU block. You've got enough head pressure and flow in the pump to actually go about that. And now part of that being, there's actual PVC tubing here, 3/8 by 5/8 tubing, which is pretty standard in actual water cooling and open loops. So you're not going to see the kink tubing or the plastic tubing. This is actual 3/8 by 5/8 PVC done nicely in black. Second thing you notice that's going to be a little off looking is you've got a fill port on the radiator itself right here with a small reservoir built onto the radiator. So you've got a G1/4 inch fill port right here, so you can actually put a fitting on there and do an external fill port if you wanted. You can run it out to a fill port without a problem. So if you are going to be filling, draining, anything else, and you can actually do maintenance on the unit, which is not something you see in a closed loop cooler. The other immediate difference you notice is that the pump is a bit larger than what you're used to seeing in an AIO. Well, obviously it's going to be because it's a much higher head pressure, much higher flow rate pump. So you are going to get a lot more performance from this pump than what you're seeing from an AIO. It's actually a significant amount, as we're going to see. So let's take it and look at it one piece at a time and see exactly what the components are that make up the 240L. First, let's get a look at the 240L radiator. As you can see, dual 120mm radiator, 240mm radiator, as the case may be if you prefer to call it that. It does use brass tubing with copper fins, so you're going to get the best possible heat dissipation. Also, the brass tubing keeps your cooling fluid pure, so you're not going to have any growths inside of your loop. Very important thing, obviously. So you got great heat dissipation along with some purity. Also, very low FPI, fins per inch, so that's actually going to aid it in lower speed cooling. So with the fans at a lower speed, you're going to be able to get the air through the radiator without too much of a problem. Obviously, at higher speeds, you're going to get better cooling still. Now, you do have a reservoir built in, as you see, so as it sits up top, any air that's in your system is going to get trapped in the reservoir right here. So you've got that right there. So in any open loop system, that's going to be important. Fill cap right here, as we said, a G1/4 inch cap. Now, also you can use this, you can attach any type of G1/4 inch plug you want. So you can actually add in say, for example, monsoon, silver bullet. If you want to add a little bit of safety net as far as growth, you can add in a temperature sensor. You can add a fill port, external. So you've got a lot of options there with the radiator that's included with the 240L. Finished in black, very nice finish. No logo on either side, so you do just get a plain black look, but good looking radiator. In terms of fans, the Glacer 240L includes two of Cooler Master's Blademaster 120s. As you can see here, fans have an interesting look to them with a curved blade design. They are a 4-pin PWM fan, capable of speeds from 600 to 2400 RPM. Now, one of the big reasons for the inclusion of the Blademaster is they have incredible static pressure. First off, they top out at about 86 CFM, so they're going to move a ton of air. But really, more important in a water cooling application on a radiator is the fact that they produce over 4 millimeters H2O of static pressure. So they have enough oomph to get the air through the radiator itself. That's going to be very important. Now, at lower speeds, the Blademasters are a very quiet fan, so you're going to get very quiet performance, good cooling from the system. However, at higher speeds, the Blademasters do get a little bit loud. However, they move a ton of air through, and it's going to put the performance right through the roof. Down to the last piece of the 240L is the pump and contact plate that we see here. It is built off the same pump that was used in the H220. However, they've upped this top end speed from 3000 RPM to 3500 RPM. This allows for a flow of 165 liters per hour. That is an awful lot of flow, as well as head pressure capable of 2.65 meters. So you've got a ton of pressure, good flow, so you're going to be able to add, like I say, a second radiator, or GPU block, or both without a problem. You've got enough to get that done. If you're not adding anything, that is a lot of water moving through that radiator and over the contact plate. More water over the plate is going to mean cooler temperatures, so you've really got a lot going on here. Now, in upping the speed on the pump, Cooler Master also upped the draw on the pump. Now, they've provided provision for that. It is still PWM pump, but as you see, only 2 wires. Only the speed controller is used for the PWM. It does not draw power off the PWM. Instead, a SATA power connector is used, so you'll be connecting directly to your power supply for the pump. So you're going to get plenty of power to the pump without putting your motherboard in danger in any way whatsoever. Now, moving down the bottom, you've got an oversized all copper block, as you can see, with very fine microchannels inside, so you're going to get great heat dissipation from the CPU to the block to the water. Once again, better dissipation means better CPU temperatures. In terms of accessories, first thing, start with Glacer 240L user guide. As you can see, pretty well illustrated. One thing I will say, the illustrations are a bit small. I mean, some of the writing is almost impossible to read, but it's a very, very easy install. So just the pictures and brief descriptions will get you through it without a problem. Separate sections for AMD, Intel, and separate section for socket 2011 as well. That's going to be necessitated because they do use 3 different kits. It comes with the Intel 775, 1366, and 1155, 56, 1150 kit already installed, and the backplate is already on it when it comes out of the box. However, LGA 2011 kit is included, as is an AMD kit, which uses the stock backplate from your motherboard. Your mounting screws, as you can see, 2 different size screws. One if you're going through a fan, through the case, through the fan, into the radiator, and just what looks like fan mounting screws that actually, if you're using the stock mounting, will just go through the case into the fan. Now, the most interesting piece included here is a PWM adapter. What this does, it's got one PWM cable, which will go to your motherboard PWM header, which will control the speed of 8 PWM devices. So you can have your pump plugged in, as well as 4 fans, if you're doing a push-pull, plus a couple of case fans. So you can control 8 PWM devices, like I say, from the one PWM header. However, they are not powered from that header. It only takes the control signal. It is powered by SATA power connection. The only speed that will be reported back is from channel 1 that you see here, which is marked in red. The other speeds will not be reported back, so it's only the one speed report. However, it's a great piece, especially if you're doing the pump and push-pull, and you're going to have 5 PWM devices on the same PWM header. Now, I did say this is one of the easiest installs you'll ever do as far as an AIO is concerned, and it really is. First off, it comes with Intel bracket, as I had shown you, installed on it right out of the factory. If you are doing an AMD install, I mean, very, very simple. You're just going to take the pins out. There's a clip here, which will allow you to pull the pins out, take the clip out. All 4 of them will come out. And your Intel bracket actually will just go right over the top and screw in from the bottom, and you're good to go there. But today we're going to do an Intel install, so we're going to leave that in place. So got our front in place and our back plate. And the next thing we're going to have to do is choose our fan orientation. Now, as we saw, the Blademaster fans do come pre-installed out of the box using the short screws in a push configuration. I do recommend you always use a push configuration on your fan. What I mean by that, you want the air blowing from the fan through the radiator. You don't want to suck air through the radiator. You're going to get better performance if you're pushing, if possible. Now, in installing these, you're going to have to decide, are you using an intake or an exhaust? If you're using an intake, you are going to be able to get away with the factory default that you see here. So you just leave the fans as is, the radiator would go up top and your screws would go right into the fans to hold it into place. However, I'm actually going to be using the fans as an exhaust, so therefore I'm going to be mounting the blank side of the radiator to the top of the case. So I'm going to need the short screws that were initially in the fans in order to mount the case. Therefore, I'm going to use the longer screws in order to mount the fans to the radiator. Now, typically you don't want to hang this upside down. You do want your reservoir to be facing up. However, the case I'm using today doesn't allow for that, so I'm going to have to mount it theoretically upside down in the case. Before you begin the physical install, one of the first things you want to think about is actually going to be your PWM. Reason being, obviously PWM headers are typically up on the top of the motherboard in the system. If you're going to be hanging the radiator from the top, you're not going to be able to get to it after the radiator is installed, so you're going to need to pre-wire it. Now, if you've got two PWM headers, of course, you can put the pump to one. You can put the fans to the second without a problem using a Y connector, which is not included. Or you can simply use the 8-way PWM splitter that's included, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to actually plug that in first to the CPU fan header. And we can then just get that out of the way, and we'll be mounting that behind the motherboard later. This way your PWM is plugged in, nothing is going to be in the way when you go to plug in your PWM later. So with the unit assembled, first step is going to be to mount the radiator and fans. So you'll take and bring it to whatever position you're using. I'm using the top position here in the Define R4, and as you can see, it's a little bit of a tight fit with a Sabertooth Z87, but it does actually fit. Put it into place, and 8 screws up top, and your radiator and fans are in place. Mounting the pump is going to start with the mounting of the back plate. As you take a look at the back plate, you'll see there are 2 notches which will actually coincide with the high points and mounting points of the LGA socket. Now, the actual mounts, as you can see, slide freely all the way out for 1366, all the way in for 775, 1150 series sockets. You're going to bring it out, they say, right about 20%. Now, since they do slide, you'll actually get a feel for it. And start the first one, get your second into place. The nubs go right through the holes in the motherboard. And 2, 3, and finally 4 into place. And the back plate will stay into place pretty well, but you are going to have to hold it from the back when you do the actual screw-in of the pump. Now that I've got the back plate in place, you can actually see the 4 threads protruding through the motherboard that we are going to actually be bolting to using the pins here. First step, of course, make sure you've got your plastic off and peel off. I've already applied the thermal interface material, as you can see, to the CPU. And We're going to put the pump into place. Once again, you've got the free sliding, just as you did on the back plate, on the 4 pins. So you can kind of get them into place as close as possible before you go in. Make sure your Cooler Master logo is right side up. Get your tubes the way you like them. Make sure you got your cables out of the way. And you go in, get the first bolt down started. And once you've got the first started, obviously it's going to be a lot easier getting the next going. After you've got all 4 of the bolt downs started and hand tight, you can go in with the Phillips head screwdriver. Just give them a final snug down. They do actually stop, obviously go in an X pattern and just turn until they stop. It is not a high pressure mount, so you can actually pretty much tighten them by hand without too much of a problem, and just check them with the screwdriver. So once they're all mounted, you can then take off your protective coating, get a nice look at the pump itself with the Cooler Master logo. Like I say, really nice looking unit in the case. So all we've got left to do is a little wiring and we're good to go. First we're going to connect the power. They say power to the pump is SATA. We'll bring it over and connect it straight to a SATA power connector. And we are also going to connect our 8-way PWM splitter. To power as well. So now all the power for the fans is going to go through the PWM splitter. It is not going to draw off your motherboard. It's going to use the PWM signal from your motherboard for the signal only for speed control. Next we're going to plug in our 2 fans. Now as I say, channel 1 is going to report back to you the speed. So I'm actually going to use channel 1, which actually is here. Channel 1 and 2 for the fans, so I have a reading on my fan speed, and use another channel for the pump speed. This way I get a report back on the fan speeds, but I will not get a report back on the pump speeds. You can do it conversely, plug the pump into number 1, and you'll always have the pump speed readout, or as I've done with the fans. Now normally I would typically do this behind the motherboard, but just to show you I'm doing it out in front so you can see all the connections clearly. So after a little minor housekeeping with the cables, obviously we get everything mounted back behind the motherboard. Very, very clean install. Probably one of the easiest installs on an AIO, if not the easiest. The pump mount is really very easy to work with, and also you really don't fight with these tubes whatsoever the way you do with the stiffer tubes. Also having the rotating fittings on the tubing that allow you to get it moved around a bit helps as well. But of course now it's time to take a look at exactly how well it performs, and that's what we're going to do now. So taking a look at those benchmark numbers, and after having run it through it, I mean, the numbers are obviously eye-popping. The Glacer 240L obviously is going to be an Editor's Choice Award winner here, and to say I was impressed with it would be the understatement of the year. I mean, I was absolutely blown away. Not so much by the top end performance, but actually by the lower RPM performance. But you look at the top end performance with the fans at 2400 RPM, with the pump at 3500 RPM, and I mean, it was absolutely mind blowing, seeing those numbers. It absolutely annihilated the other AIOs in the test. They didn't even come close, but that's not really where it became impressive. The impressive part was at 60% PWM, the fans were running at about 1200 RPM. The pump was running at about 2700 RPM, so a little bit less than the factory H220 used to. And you wind up with a situation where it's still outperforming the H100i, it's still outperforming the Tundra TD02, and it's almost dead silent. I mean, you're talking about an H100i that sounds like a vacuum cleaner, a TD02 that sounds close, straining away, and this thing's dead silent and still running at lower temperatures than they were. I can't begin to tell you how impressive that actually is. Now, as an overall package, I mean, Cooler Master basically promised us an H220 on steroids, and that is exactly what we got. At first, I was really hesitant to believe, buy into it, since it was using Cooler Master fans. Typically very, very noisy fans, and like I say, at the top end, definitely noisy. Still quieter than the H100i, about on par with the TD02 as far as noise. But where it was very, very well behaved at lower RPMs as far as noise goes. Very, very quiet. On par with the original H220 fans, maybe even a little bit quieter. So you can get a very quiet computing experience without a problem, setting up the fan curves correctly, and this thing will probably never go over 60% under load, and you'll still be well with fantastic temperatures all the way across. Now, looking at the whole package, though, I mean, incredible quality on the build itself. I mean, beautiful pump, using really nice tubing, very, very nice radiator. Talked about the fans, really great fans. One thing I will say about the radiator, and this has always been a problem with Swiftech radiators, you need to be a little bit careful when you're putting them in. The black coating does come off of the copper and brass pretty easily, but it will rub off, but just be a little careful and you won't have that problem. But other than that, I mean, very easy installation. Love the pivot fittings and that are on all four fitting sides. Definitely like the reservoir with the G1/4" fitting, so you're really getting a fantastic package here. The expandability, I mean, definitely a plus. And the fact that it's got a pump that it can actually run a full GPU block, full cover GPU block, along with another radiator. I mean, at $139, it's just such an incredible value, the Glacer 240L. I mean, you're looking at about $15 more than the top end 240mm AIOs, and you're getting a ton more. You're getting better performance, better build quality, you're getting expandability. I mean, looking at anything else in a high-end 240mm AIO, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. Nothing comes close. The Cooler Master Glacer 240L, easy High Tech Legion Editor's Choice Award winner.